The night was unusually quiet in the suburban neighborhood where Jamal lived, a silence that felt almost eerie. A decorated Navy soldier, Jamal had chosen this area to settle down after years of service, seeking peace and a sense of belonging. But on this particular night, peace was the last thing on the minds of a local racist gang, whose hatred boiled over into action. It began with whispers in the dark and the faint sound of footsteps approaching Jamal's property. The group, masked and armed with bats, spray paint, and other tools of intimidation, had one goal in mind: to send a message. Jamal's house, standing tall with its neatly trimmed lawn and proud American flag, became their target. To them, his success and presence were a threat to their twisted ideals. The vandalism started small: slurs spray-painted on the walls, rocks hurled at windows, and a firecracker tossed onto the front porch. But their actions escalated quickly, fueled by their collective ignorance and hatred. Laughing and jeering, they felt untouchable in their numbers, assuming that no one could or would stand up to them. Unbeknownst to them, the house was not empty. Inside, Jamal remained calm yet alert, his instincts as a Navy soldier kicking in. He had heard the commotion and quickly assessed the situation. These were no professionals, but their numbers and aggression made them dangerous. Jamal knew he had to act swiftly, not just to defend himself and his property, but to send a clear message: he would not be intimidated. Little did the gang know, they had just awakened a storm. As the taunts and noises outside grew louder, Jamal took a deep breath, steadying his nerves. Years of military service had taught him how to remain composed in high-pressure situations, and tonight was no different. While others might have panicked, Jamal's training kicked in. He knew that his actions in the next few moments would define not only the outcome of this night, but also his stance against the hatred that had come uninvited to his doorstep. Peering through the curtains, he counted at least 7 individuals, each wearing dark clothing and masks, armed with makeshift weapons. They were vandalizing his car, smashing windows, and spray-painting hateful slurs on his property. Their laughter echoed through the night, a twisted celebration of their cruelty. But Jamal wasn't just going to stand by and let them continue. Jamal quietly armed himself with his phone in one hand and a legally owned firearm in the other, a tool of defense he hoped he wouldn't have to use. First, he called the police, calmly providing details of the situation. "I'm under attack by a group of masked vandals," he stated, his voice steady but firm. "They're armed and dangerous. Send help immediately." Hanging up, he knew the police would take time to arrive, and in the interim, he had to take control. He turned on the exterior floodlights, instantly illuminating the yard. The sudden burst of light startled the gang, who stumbled and shielded their faces. Jamal then opened his front door, stepping out onto the porch with a commanding presence. "That's enough," he shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Leave my property now, or you'll regret it." The gang froze for a moment, caught off guard by his confidence, but their hesitation quickly morphed into arrogance. One of them, a tall figure holding a baseball bat, stepped forward. "What are you gonna do, old man?" he sneered, his tone dripping with contempt. Jamal didn't flinch. "You're trespassing, destroying property, and threatening my safety. This is your last warning." Instead of retreating, the group advanced, emboldened by their numbers. Jamal knew he had to act decisively, with precision honed through years of training. He fired a warning shot into the air, a sharp crack that echoed through the neighborhood. The sound had the desired effect, halting the gang in their tracks. "Next one won't be a warning," Jamal said coldly, his gaze locked on the leader. His voice carried the weight of a man who had faced far more dangerous foes than a group of misguided vandals. The group hesitated again, their bravado wavering. Some exchanged nervous glances, while others muttered under their breath, clearly reconsidering their actions. But the leader, unwilling to back down, took another step forward. "You think you scare us?" he spat. Jamal's response was swift. He raised his phone, which had been recording the entire confrontation. "This is all on camera," he said. "Your faces, your voices, your crimes. The police are on their way. You can leave now, or you can face the consequences." The mention of the police and evidence seemed to break the gang's resolve. One by one, they began retreating, their swagger replaced by nervous shuffling. The leader lingered for a moment, glaring at Jamal, before finally backing down and muttering, "This isn't over." As they disappeared into the night, Jamal remained on high alert, watching until he was certain they were gone. Only then did he lower his firearm and step back inside. He locked the door and checked the footage he had captured, ensuring it was clear enough to identify the attackers. When the police arrived minutes later, Jamal was ready. He handed over the video evidence and provided a detailed account of the events. The officers, impressed by his composure and preparation, assured him that they would pursue the culprits. Though the immediate threat had passed, Jamal knew the fight wasn't over. This wasn't just about protecting his home. It was about standing up against hate and ensuring that such actions wouldn't go unchallenged. That night, he became not just a victim but a symbol of resilience and courage in the face of bigotry. In the days following the confrontation, Jamal found himself unable to shake the tension. Though the gang had fled that night, the leader's parting words, "This isn't over," echoed in his mind. Jamal knew better than to take such threats lightly. He had seen firsthand the damage that hatred, when left unchecked, could inflict. But he also knew something else. He wasn't alone. Jamal had spent decades in the military, serving alongside men and women who became more than comrades, they became family. These were people he could trust with his life. Individuals who had faced challenges far greater than any gang of local bullies. If there was one thing Jamal had learned during his service, it was that battles were never fought or won alone. That evening, Jamal sat down in his living room, his mind racing with ideas. He needed a plan, not just to protect himself, but to send a clear message that intimidation and violence would not be tolerated. His first step was to reach out to his network of fellow veterans. He opened his phone and scrolled through his contacts, each name sparking a memory of shared missions and unbreakable camaraderie. He started with Marcus, a former squad leader with a knack for strategy. Marcus had always been the one to keep a level head, even in the most chaotic situations. "Marcus," Jamal began after the call connected, "I've got a situation here, and I could really use your input." "Talk to me," Marcus replied, his tone instantly serious. Jamal detailed the events of the attack, from the vandalism to the confrontation and the gang's ominous threat. He also shared his concerns about potential retaliation. "I don't want to escalate things unnecessarily," Jamal said, "but I also can't just sit here waiting for them to come back." Marcus listened intently before responding. "First off, you did the right thing by calling the cops and documenting everything. That's your first line of defense. But you're right, these guys sound like they might not let it go. We need to make sure you're prepared." Over the next hour, they worked out the beginnings of a plan. Marcus suggested involving a few other veterans who lived nearby, individuals who could help bolster Jamal's security while staying within the boundaries of the law. "We're not looking to start a fight," Marcus emphasized. "Our goal is to prevent one." The next day, Jamal reached out to more of his former squad mates, Sarah, an expert in communications who could help coordinate efforts, Luis, who had experience in urban security operations, and Carla, a skilled negotiator with a deep understanding of conflict de-escalation. Each call was met with unwavering support. "Of course I'll help," Sarah said without hesitation. "Just tell me what you need." "Consider it done," Luis added. "We'll make sure they think twice before trying anything again." By the end of the week, Jamal's house had become a hub of quiet preparation. His friends arrived one by one, each bringing their unique skills to the table. Together, they conducted a thorough assessment of the property, identifying potential vulnerabilities and devising ways to strengthen them. Luis took charge of physical security, installing motion-activated cameras and reinforcing the locks on all doors and windows. "We want to make this place as unappealing a target as possible," he explained. Sarah set up a secure communication system, ensuring that everyone involved could stay in constant contact. She also helped Jamal organize the video footage from the first attack, creating a comprehensive file to share with law enforcement and legal advisors. Carla, meanwhile, focused on community outreach. "The more eyes and ears we have on our side, the better," she said. She helped Jamal connect with neighbors, and local organizations, rallying support and raising awareness about the threats he was facing. Marcus acted as the overall coordinator, ensuring that every piece of the plan fit together seamlessly. "This isn't just about protecting one house," he said during one of their strategy sessions. "It's about showing these guys that they can't intimidate this community." As they worked, Jamal couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude and pride. These were people who had already given so much. Yet here they were, stepping up once again without hesitation. Their presence reminded him that resilience wasn't just about standing alone. It was about leaning on those who had your back. The team also devised contingency plans for various scenarios. What if the gang returned in greater numbers? What if they targeted other parts of the neighborhood? How could they ensure that any confrontation remained lawful and measured? De-escalation is key, Carla stressed during one meeting. "We're not here to provoke them. Our goal is to protect and deter." Still, they prepared for every possibility. Jamal and his friends conducted drills, simulating different situations to ensure they were ready to respond quickly and effectively. They also coordinated with local law enforcement, sharing their plans and emphasizing their commitment to staying within legal boundaries. The sense of solidarity extended beyond Jamal's immediate circle. Inspired by his story, other veterans in the area reached out, offering their support and expertise. Some volunteered to patrol the neighborhood, while others helped organize community meetings to address broader concerns about safety and unity. As the days turned into weeks, Jamal's house transformed into more than just a fortified home. It became a symbol of resistance against hate. The gang's initial attack, intended to intimidate, had instead sparked a movement, uniting people from all walks of life in a shared commitment to stand against prejudice. For Jamal, the process was both empowering and humbling. He knew that the fight wasn't over, but he also knew that he wasn't fighting alone. Whatever came next, he was ready, not just because of the plans they had laid, but because of the people who stood beside him, unwavering in their resolve. Jamal sat in the dimly lit room, the air heavy with the gravity of what was about to happen. The weeks of preparation had led to this moment, a decisive strike against the gang that had terrorized his community and threatened his life. The gang's recent actions had escalated, crossing a line from threats to direct harm. It was no longer enough to wait defensively. The time had come to act. The gang's base of operations, a rundown warehouse on the outskirts of town, was well known to local authorities but had proven difficult to investigate. Protected by layers of intimidation and secrecy, the location was a fortress of fear, with community members too scared to speak out and law enforcement hesitant to intervene without concrete evidence. Jamal, however, was determined to change that. "This isn't about revenge," he reminded his team during their final briefing. "This is about dismantling their power and making our neighborhood safe again." Jamal's team of veterans had spent the past weeks gathering intelligence. Sarah, the communications expert, had hacked into publicly available records, piecing together the gang's logistics and identifying key members. Luis had conducted surveillance, mapping out the warehouse's layout and noting patterns in the gang's movements. Marcus, the strategist, had drawn up a detailed plan for the raid, accounting for every possible contingency. "Remember," Marcus said, addressing the group, "our goal is to get evidence, not escalate the situation. We're going in quiet and coming out clean. If things get messy, we fall back immediately." The plan was meticulous. The team would infiltrate the warehouse under the cover of darkness, using stealth to avoid detection. Their primary objectives were to gather incriminating evidence and disable the gang's ability to operate effectively. Secondary objectives included identifying any vulnerable individuals who might be coerced into the gang's ranks and ensuring their safety. As the sun set on the day of the raid, the team gathered at Jamal's house for a final check, dressed in dark clothing and equipped with tactical gear. They reviewed the plan one last time. Each member carried a specific role. Sarah would monitor communications and provide updates from a nearby van. Luis and Carla would handle entry and navigation, and Jamal and Marcus would focus on securing evidence. By midnight, they were in position. The warehouse loomed in the distance, its silhouette outlined by the faint glow of nearby streetlights. The surrounding area was eerily quiet, the usual sounds of the city muffled as if the neighborhood itself held its breath. Luis led the way, his movements deliberate and soundless. Using the information gathered during their surveillance, he guided the team to a side entrance obscured by stacks of discarded crates. He signaled for Carla, who swiftly picked the lock and eased the door open. Inside, the warehouse was a labyrinth of shadows and clutter. The air was thick with the smell of oil and decay, and the faint hum of machinery echoed through the space. The team moved in formation, their steps synchronized and deliberate. Jamal's heart pounded as they navigated the maze-like interior. Every corner they turned was a potential ambush, every sound a possible threat. But his training kicked in, keeping his focus sharp and his movements controlled. The first objective was the gang's office, a small room at the back of the warehouse where their leader was believed to conduct business. Sarah's surveillance had revealed that the office was used to store records, including financial transactions and communications with other criminal networks. Luis and Carla took point, securing the hallway leading to the office. Jamal and Marcus slipped inside, their flashlights illuminating stacks of papers and a computer on a makeshift desk. "Jackpot," Marcus whispered, pulling out a portable scanner. Jamal sifted through the documents, snapping photos of anything that seemed significant: bank records, ledgers, and a list of names, all evidence that could tie the gang to their activities. Meanwhile, Marcus worked on copying data from the computer, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "Got it," Marcus said after a few tense minutes, just as they were preparing to leave. The sound of voices echoed from the hallway. Jamal's heart raced as he signaled for the team to take cover. Two gang members appeared, their casual banter masking the danger they represented. Carla reacted swiftly, stepping out of the shadows with a disarming smile. "Hey, guys," she said, her tone light and friendly. The men froze, their expressions shifting from confusion to suspicion. Before they could react, Luis appeared behind them, his presence imposing. "You're trespassing," one of the men stammered. "Funny," Luis replied calmly. "We were about to say the same thing." The standoff was brief. Outnumbered and outmatched, the gang members backed down, allowing the team to proceed without further incident. The next target was the storage area, where the gang was rumored to keep weapons and other contraband. This part of the mission was riskier, as it required navigating an open space with limited cover. Sarah's voice crackled in Jamal's earpiece, providing updates on the guards' positions. "You've got two at the northwest corner and one near the loading dock," she said. The team moved with precision, neutralizing the guards without drawing attention. In the storage area, they found a cache of weapons and stolen goods, all carefully documented for future use by law enforcement. As they completed their objectives, the team prepared to exfiltrate. But just as they reached the exit, an alarm blared, shattering the silence. "They know we're here," Sarah's voice warned. The warehouse erupted into chaos as gang members scrambled to respond. Jamal and his team moved quickly, using their training to evade capture. Marcus led the way, his calm demeanor guiding them through the turmoil. "Stay together," he ordered. "We're almost out." Despite the chaos, the team managed to reach the perimeter. A waiting vehicle whisked them away, the adrenaline still coursing through their veins. Back at their safe house, the team reviewed the evidence they had collected. The documents and data painted a damning picture of the gang's operations, providing law enforcement with the tools needed to dismantle their network. For Jamal, the success of the raid was bittersweet. It was a victory, yes, but it also underscored the lengths to which they had to go to protect their community. As he looked around at his team, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. "This isn't the end," he said, "but it's a start." As the first rays of dawn broke over the city, Jamal stood in the quiet safe house, surveying the stack of evidence his team had gathered during the raid. The room was filled with a strange sense of both accomplishment and apprehension. Though the mission had been a success, its aftermath was just beginning, and the challenges ahead would test their resilience in new ways. The team, exhausted but resolute, gathered around the central table. Luis was bandaging a minor cut on his arm, while Sarah's fingers danced across her laptop, backing up the digital files they had extracted. Marcus, ever the strategist, leaned over a map, plotting out the next steps to ensure the operation's results were put to good use. Jamal cleared his throat, drawing their attention. We did what we set out to do. But this isn't over, not by a long shot. The gang might be weakened, but they're not gone. And now, they know we're a threat. The weight of his words settled over the group, but it was Sarah who broke the silence. We've got enough evidence to force law enforcement to act this time. They can't ignore this. Her determination was infectious, a reminder of why they had started this journey. The first order of business was delivering the evidence to the authorities. The team knew they couldn't trust the usual channels. Corruption and complacency had long plagued the local system. Instead, they decided to take the evidence directly to a trusted ally, Detective Ramirez, a veteran officer known for his integrity and commitment to justice. The meeting with Ramirez was tense but fruitful. In a small, nondescript cafe far from prying eyes, Jamal laid out the evidence. Ramirez examined the documents and digital files with a grim expression. "This is enough to shut them down," he said finally. "But it won't be easy. They've got connections, and they'll fight back. Then we'll be ready." Jamal replied, "We just need you to do your part." With Ramirez on board, the team turned their attention to the community. The gang's grip on the neighborhood had been weakened, but fear still lingered. Jamal and his team knew they had to rebuild trust and empower the residents to stand up for themselves. They started small, organizing neighborhood meetings to share their story and encourage others to speak out. At first, attendance was sparse. People were understandably wary, unsure if Jamal's group could truly protect them. But as the weeks passed, more and more residents began to show up, their courage bolstered by the knowledge that someone was finally fighting for them. One of the most impactful moments came when a young woman named Elena, a former gang member, stood up during a meeting. "I was one of them," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I thought they were my only option, but seeing what you've done, I realized there's another way." Her words struck a chord, inspiring others to come forward with their own stories. Slowly but surely, the community began to heal. Meanwhile, the gang's response was as vicious as expected. Intimidation tactics increased, with threats directed not only at Jamal's team but at the community members who supported them. Jamal knew they had to maintain their momentum and demonstrate that resistance was possible. The team worked tirelessly to fortify the neighborhood's defenses, both literal and symbolic. They coordinated with Ramirez to increase police presence in key areas, while also setting up community patrols to deter further gang activity. Sarah used her tech expertise to create a secure communication network, allowing residents to report suspicious activity without fear of retaliation. Amidst these efforts, Jamal found himself reflecting on the personal toll of the battle. He had sacrificed his own safety, and his relationship with his family had been strained by the constant danger. One evening, his mother pulled him aside. "Jamal," she said, her voice soft but firm, "I'm proud of what you're doing, but don't lose yourself in this fight. Remember why you started." Her words stayed with him, a reminder of the balance he needed to strike. He couldn't do this alone, nor should he. The strength of their movement lay in its collective power. As the months went by, the tide began to turn. Arrests were made based on the evidence Jamal's team had gathered, and the gang's influence waned. The community, once paralyzed by fear, began to flourish. Small businesses reopened. Children played in the streets without fear, and a sense of hope took root. But the journey was far from over. Jamal knew that the gang's remnants could resurface, and new threats could emerge. Yet, for the first time in years, he felt a sense of cautious optimism. They had proven that change was possible, that unity and determination could overcome even the most entrenched forms of oppression. In a final act of solidarity, the team organized a neighborhood celebration. It was a simple affair: music, food, and laughter echoing through the streets, but its significance was profound. It was a declaration that the community would not be broken, a testament to their resilience and strength. As the sun set on the day of the celebration, Jamal stood at the edge of the crowd, watching children dance and families share meals. For a moment, the weight of the past months lifted, replaced by a quiet sense of fulfillment. Marcus joined him, a rare smile on his usually stoic face. "We did good, Jamal. This is what it's all about." Jamal nodded, his gaze fixed on the people they had fought to protect. "It's not over," he said, "but it's a start. And sometimes, that's enough." The celebration stretched into the night, a beacon of hope in a city that had long been shrouded in darkness. And as Jamal looked ahead to the challenges that still lay before them, he knew they would face them together, stronger, braver, and more united than ever.